last section, we had a long discussion about the differences between forms in a create versus edit mode. I'm going to pick a direction to move forward in. If you feel like, I want to really try to reuse the entire form, like the entire thing. I just want to make one component that's responsible for both editing and and creation. That's fine. If you want to make two completely separate components, that's totally fine. But I'm going to I'm going to call this a hybrid approach. I'm going to call this like the middle ground. I want to point out that the really reusable portion in both of these create and edit forms is the set of fields in the middle, right? That's like the real reusable portion here. So what I'm going to suggest is that we're going to create two separate components. One is going to be called employee create, and we've already got one called that. And then we're going to have another one called employee edit. We'll then make a third component called employee form. The purpose of employee form is to just tackle these three fields right here. So these three fields are 100% common between the two different forms. So I can pull them all into a separate component. I can reuse that amount of code. But for all the stuff about deciding about, hey, what should happen when a user clicks the button at the bottom, we can make a separate employee create component to figure that out. And when deciding what to do when a user clicks on delete, we're going to make a separate employee edit component to figure that out as well. So that's the plan going forward. We're going to introduce a new employee edit component and a new employee form component as well. So we certainly have quite a good amount of little refactoring to do here. So let's get started on it. Inside of my components directory, I'm going to get started by creating a new file called employee form. And then the sole purpose of this component right here is to show those different fields to the user. The fields to edit, the name, the shift, and the phone number. So we'll make a class employee form. Add our render method. I'm not going to add anything in here just yet. At the bottom, we will export default employee form. So again, the only purpose of this thing is to make sure that we show the different fields that the user should see. So I'm going to flip back over to the employee create, and I think that we can actually get away with just copy pasting out a bunch of stuff in here. So I'm going to take the first card section, the second card section, and the third card section, all the picker stuff. So I'm going to select all this stuff, all three card sections. I'm going to cut it out, and I'm going to move it all over to the employee form. So in here I will return, and I need to have a view at the top level because I cannot, every render method I make has to return just one top level element, and these three card sections are all siblings. Okay, so now we've got our employee form, and it contains the three different card sections in here. Of course, we're going to need to fill in a couple imports at the top, so I'll do that right now. I will import view from React Native. I think we're also going to need the text for the label and picker as well. So view, text, and picker. And then we will import the card section and the input from common. And I think that should probably get up. Just one last error here. We need to make sure we bring over the styles object as well. So we've got text styles right here. I'm going to flip back over to employee create. I'm going to grab my styles object. It's not being used inside this file, so I'm just going to take the entire thing. So I'm going to cut it. I'm going to come back over to employee form and paste it at the bottom. Okay, so now I don't think I have any errors left in here. I think I'm good to go. The next thing we have to do inside of this employee form right here is make sure that it has access to the employee update action creator. Remember, that is the action creator that actually does something whenever a user types some value in here. So I want to take my employee update action creator and add it to this component. You know how to handle that. We will import the connect helper at the top from React Redux, and then we'll also import our action creator of employee update from actions. Then we can flip down to the bottom and we'll toss in our connect helper. I don't think that we're going to need a map state to props here, so I'm going to leave it as null, and we'll pass in employee update. Okay, so the API, so to speak, about this thing. You know what? I take that back. We do need a map state to props because we do have to pull in the name, the phone, and the shift of the user as well. So we do need that map state to props. So we will define map state to props. We'll take our state object. This thing is going to show, or it's going to require some number of attributes off of the employee form reducer. So we're going to reach out to the state.employee form property, and we're going to pull off the name, the phone, and the shift. Then from this function, we will return name, phone, and shift. Lastly, I'm going to replace null with map state to props, like so. Now, I'm sure this refactor is probably doesn't seem like the clearest thing in the world, right? Doesn't seem like the clearest thing, but I do want to point out, or I want to convince you it's not as bad as it might seem. Our employee form as it stands right here is exactly identical to how it was inside of employee create. We're still showing 3 card sections. We show the value coming from this.props.name, which is sourced from our employee form reducer. And then whenever a user changes the value of some input, we call employee update action creator with the prop of the property that was changed and the new value as well. So all we've done at this point is extracted these 3 fields into a separate component. Now the last thing that we need to do is make sure that the employee create form shows that set of fields. So inside of employee create, we're going to do just a little bit of cleanup at the top. We don't need the picker or the text anymore. We don't need the input anymore. We do need our employee form from employee form. And then we're going to show this inside of this component. So in the render method, right above the last card section, we'll show employee form like so. The last thing that I want to do in here is I want to make sure that any props that are given to this employee create form, or this employee create component, get passed on to employee form as well. And we'll see why in just a moment. So to make sure that we pass along any props that are provided to this employee form, I'm going to say ... this.props. And what this says is take all of the different props that employee create has been passed and forward them on to employee form as well. Again, we will come back to this little topic right here in a moment. Okay, let's do a quick test. I'm going to do my refresh. We will log in. And then I click on add, and lo and behold, we still have the same forms on the screen, or the same fields. So I can add in Jane, 555. Let's do a different name. Let's say Amanda. And then we'll create, and everything still works the same. So here's Amanda right here. The only difference that we've made at this point is that we extracted out all those fields into a separate component. Do notice at this point that, hey, you know what? Employee create is now really small. There's not a lot of stuff that's going on here just yet. So it is pretty nice in that regard. Let's now continue on to the next section and see where we're going to get the real benefit here by creating our employee edit form.